Welcome in. President Trump had a tense meeting with Senate Republicans today. It came hours after Trump suddenly canceled a signing ceremony for newly passed housing affordability legislation that had bipartisan support. We heard reaction from two Republican senators, Bill Cassidy and John Cornyn, after that meeting wrapped up.
The president didn't want to hear my question, interrupted me. I didn't care to be interrupted. I felt like I was trying to get answers for the American people. And I'm not going to be bullied when I'm trying to get answers for the American people. And so it escalated from there. At some point, it de-escalated.
We're told the president called you a lunatic?
Can I imagine that the president called me things that would be said on a playground? Yeah, I can imagine that.
The president closed by preaching unity, but he spent the entire hour talking about things which were not exactly unifying.
CBS News congressional reporter Taurean Small has the latest now from Capitol Hill.
It was a contentious day on the Hill, and at the center of it, President Donald Trump. Just moments before heading to a Senate Republican lunch, the president canceled a signing of a landmark bipartisan housing bill, holding it hostage for his national voter ID law, the Save America Act. Inside that meeting was fireworks. Senator Bill Cassidy went toe-to-toe with the president for signing on to the Iran War Powers Resolution. The president asked him flat out, why would he sign that? And he stood up and said, if you really want to know, it's because the American people had no idea about his plan. Senator Cassidy confirming to CBS News that the president rubbed salt in the wounds by bringing up the fact that he lost his primary. But outside of their spat, we heard from leader John Thune, who was a bit more diplomatic, but his response was telling. He said that the president talked solely about the SAVE Act and his opinion, but as he stated this time and time again, Republicans in the Senate do not have the votes for its passage. Moving forward, we know that Speaker Mike Johnson and the president will continue the conversation Thursday at the White House. Back to you.
I want to bring in New York Times congressional correspondent Robert Jimison. So, Robert, President Trump getting in a shouting match with some Republican senators, and this comes amid other tensions surrounding the Iran war and the filibuster. What can you tell us about the disconnect?
Well, I can tell you from what I was told that the president came into this meeting extremely angry. You could tell senators told me that he had a number of grievances from members within his own party. Like you mentioned there, the Iran war was high on his list. He brought up old legal disputes, had the possibility of him being indicted, judge nominations, all sorts of, he came in just with a laundry list. But there was a real disconnect between members who were telling the president, we're trying to get your agenda accomplished, but it seems at multiple turns, the White House and the president himself are making it harder for Senate Republicans to do the will of the president in the legislative body. You're looking at national security, FISA, the delay there. You're looking at the Iran war, gas prices going up for Americans all over the country. These are things that, these Republican senators have to go back to their states and try to sell to the American voter. And the longer that this goes on, the harder it is to sell those things.
Sure. So a number of GOP senators will not be returning to Capitol Hill after losing their primaries. So could we see more pushback as they finish out their terms?
I think yes, and yes, you're going to see more what we like to call untethered lawmakers who, don't have to subvert themselves to the president, no longer rely on him to get a base of voters. They've already lost their elections. They're kind of, free agents, so to speak, from now until they leave office when the next class is sworn in January. But you're also starting to see more Republicans who are returning or hope to return next session, starting to chafe a little bit more. I think, like I mentioned there, the affordability issue is big here. And I think a key thing to pay attention to, the president very quickly scrapped what was supposed to be a huge win for Republicans, this bipartisan housing bill to bring down the cost of housing, something that universally speaks to so many voters, no matter their political alignment. Republicans were hoping that that would get them on track to moving ahead in this message that Republicans are the affordability party going into November. The president immediately discarded that, canceled the signing ceremony, canceled the whole photo op, and turned to other issues that have been plaguing the Republican Party and plaguing Senate Republicans for weeks now: national security, the war in Iran, and those things are linked to the affordability issues that, people are still expressing concerns over: the cost of gas, the cost of food, fertilizer in more rural states and farming communities. And so Republicans are telling me, look, we're trying to do everything that the president wants. We're trying to push his agenda. We're trying to be the legislative wing of this movement that sent him and all the Republicans unified control in Washington barely 2 years ago. But they're struggling. And the big struggle, ironically, is the president himself. And it's very hard for these Republicans I've spoken to make sense of exactly what is the goal of the president here and why does he seem to be cutting off Republicans at the nose.
Robert Jimison. Robert, thank you.
Thank you.